So, hey, everybody, I have another special guest this week, and you are definitely going to want to hear from her. Let me introduce you to Colette Mellot, who is with CMBA, which is CM Business and Accounting. And Colette, thank you for coming to talk with me today.
Oh, thank you, Shelby. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you know what? You and I network together, and you are always a wealth of knowledge in regards to what's happening. And I know that a lot of things, tax season wise, and stimuluses and all this other kind of stuff, every time I talk to you, it's like something has changed again, and you're always doing your homework. And I thought, you know what? There's probably a lot of other people that have questions just like I do. That I thought, maybe you could just shed some light for people.
Yeah, sure, Shelby. There's definitely a lot going on and a lot of moving pieces. Every year there is an element of that. Of course, the last year with COVID, it has been just absolutely crazy. Every bill that passes changes, it moves the measuring stick each time. And as you know, in the last week, it's been in the news a lot that the third stimulus passed the House and the Senate, and is just awaiting for President Biden to sign it. And the talk is that that's going to happen on Friday.
Okay.
And then that will kind of trigger everything to be finalized and get out there. So there's a lot of changes that happened kind of midstream again.
Right.
So I have some information on that
Perfect.
I can share with you. Some of the real highlights that touch a lot of people out there who are probably listening to this are the child tax credit, the unemployment, and the stimulus payments. Those are probably the big things.
Right.
So unemployment, if anybody received unemployment last year, part of the bill is making the first 10,200 of that non-taxable.
Wow.
The problem with that is that we are at March 11th into 2020 tax filing season.
Right.
So if you already filed and you paid the tax on that they withheld, that would be something that you need to address and probably amend the return.
Okay.
So that was a rule that kind of changed very late in the game. So that's one of the things that's in there.
Okay.
Unemployment also had some changes as to what they're going to pay out now and things like that. But as far as tax related, that's a big change, and some people have already filed, so that
Right.
becomes an issue for them.
Okay.
Another thing is the child tax credit. A really important thing to remember about the child tax credit, they did increase the amount you can get. But a very important thing to know is that on the child tax credit, it is they are allowing you to take it monthly, but if you take it monthly, you are getting prepaid for a credit on your 2021 taxes. So when you do your 21 taxes next year, you may have, if you took the monthly payments of the credit up front, you may not have as much coming back, or you may in fact owe next year, depending on what happens. So very important for tax planning to get that, to realize what that is.
Now, what about the stimulus as well for those individuals that received stimulus? Plus, there's another one for this year that's coming about. So what changes were there for that?
Absolutely, great question. On the stimulus, the first two I'll touch on first.
Okay.
The first two, when you're doing your taxes this year, it will ask what you got paid for the economic impact payment 1 and economic impact payment 2. That is not because they are taxing that money, and is not because they're taking anything away. What that is truing up what you were due back. So if you were due more back in the stimulus, in economic stimulus payment 1 or 2, if you're due more back of that than what you got because your 2020 income changed, then you will get more in your refund this year. You'll get that in this refund.
Wow.
If you did not
Okay.
receive number 2, yeah, exactly. Not typically what
Right.
happens there. And then on the economic stimulus number 2, the one that went out in December, they only had till the 15th of January to get those out. So some people they hadn't sent certain people's out set by that point. If you didn't, you could apply for it and get it as a refund on this return.
Okay. So
Um, that
what
moves
it
us on
sounds
to
to
the
me,
third.
honestly, I'm sorry, I say, Colette, what honestly comes to mind right now is you just said all of that, and then you can tell us about the third, is I shouldn't be doing my taxes, and I don't personally be doing my taxes by myself. We want a professional, because amending tax returns because of,
Exactly.
you know, the whole first thing that we talked about, you know,
Mhm.
that's crazy. I'm sorry, go ahead. Stimulus 3.
And yeah, and on the third, they approved in this bill a third payment. So they did change the phase outs for that a little bit. So while you received 1 and 2, you may not receive 3, but they didn't change it by that much. So where I think it's going to affect a huge group of people. So
Okay.
so great point, Shelby, that you made there. On having a professional do your taxes. There are so many moving pieces. It is literally a full-time job for us as preparers and as tax professionals to keep up with this. I can't imagine as, I guess, a layperson keeping up with all these changes. It would just be mind-boggling.
It,
And
it
then
is.
the other half of that is sometimes when you use like over-the-counter tax prep
Mhm.
software, you have to know what the tax definition is in some cases, of what you're answering in those questions. For example, I've had clients come in and say, oh, I'm separated from my spouse, okay? And they may
Okay.
answer that question in a over-the-counter tax program, yes, I'm separated, but if you're not separated by the IRS's definition, you're not separated. And
Oh,
I've had clients who say, well, we sleep in separate bedrooms or something like that. Well, that doesn't make you separated
no.
by their definition. So it is possible to answer those questions thinking you're answering them correctly, and it's not the answer they're looking for. So when you have a tax professional do your taxes, not only do we keep, it is our job to keep up after these changes. This is what we do. We also can interpret the information for you. And the other big thing is planning wise, being able to have somebody to call year round, because when it is open enrollment time, when a major life change happens to you during the year, you can't call that software. You can, some
Right.
of the pop-up tax season preparers aren't there the rest of the year. When you go to a tax professional, we are here year round. When you have open enrollment and have questions about how that's going to affect your tax, we're here. When you have questions about a major life change that you didn't expect to happen, we're here. When COVID hit and all these things started, these pieces started moving into place, we were here. So makes it super important and relevant to have a tax professional on your side that can help you through these things through the year, because we know that life doesn't just happen January through April. You
Right.
know, our financial lives happen 24/7, 12 months out of the year. So
Well, and I know, and I want to keep it not too long, because I want everyone to be continue to listen and watch you. But I do know that you also work with financial advisors. I've heard you talk about when you've got
yes,
clients and making the decisions and what they should be doing with their investments and what works with what. That's another key thing. If you're investing, then again, you really don't want to be doing your own taxes. You want to have a professional like yourself.
exactly. And we do work hand in hand with a lot of tax advisors to look at the tax standpoint of what they're advising you to do with your finances. That's a great point, Shelby. Thank you.
So one last question in
Mhm.
regards to the stimulus, and is there any way that people can, if they are going to qualify, that they can get that payment faster? Is there anything that they have to do? Is it just going to show up in their account again?
Yeah, good question. If the IRS already has your direct deposit information because you have that option on your tax return, and that's how you receive the first two, you're great. You should be good to go. If you haven't done that because you owe and you prefer to send a check or whatever reason, you can go out to irs.gov and you can provide them through secure means your bank information, and that'll get the payment to you sooner in most cases. I especially comes to mind this year because, or on this particular payment, because they are trying to send payments out at the same time they're trying to process tax returns in the middle of tax season. So
Right.
might be a great idea, even if you didn't do it on the first two, to go add out and make sure that they have that information before checks start rolling out.
So Colette, you have a lot of information, and I'm sure we didn't even touch on half of the questions that could possibly be asked. So if someone wants to reach you to personally ask you more questions, how can they contact you?
They can call me at the office number 267-932-8365. You can reach out via email. My email is Colette, COLETTE, as in Marie, at CMBAsolutions.com. And you can also visit my website at www.cmbasolutions.com.
Fantastic. Colette, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. You have been awesome for me just to bounce things off of you and ask you questions about things, and you're always up to date. So you're a rock star. Thank you for talking to me today.
Great. Thanks so much, Shelby. I appreciate the opportunity.
Bye, guys. We'll see you next week with someone else.